plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show. It's not a bad brand. Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Hello, I am Patrick Christys, and this is Patrick Christys Tonight Late Edition, breaking right now. The Middle East is on the brink tonight as Iran attacks a US military base in Qatar. But the question from the Daily Mail is this: whose side are you on, Sir Keir? Meanwhile, back at home... The government has vowed to ban Palestine action as a terrorist organisation. There's a lady on the front of the... oh, that way, or the Independent there, who's got Choose Love on her shirt as she screams in a police officer's face and looks like she's about to clock him. So there you go. They're the good guys. Anyway, meanwhile, The Sun has revealed how small boat migrants get illegal £1,000 a week delivery rider jobs within hours of landing in the UK. Plus... could this be the end of the moon as we know it? You are not going to believe tonight's finale that could literally change everything. Well, we've got an absolutely top panel tonight. We have got GB News contributor and comedian is Leo Kearse. We have got journalist and broadcaster Christo Foufas and political commentator Andy Twelves. But first, it's time for your bulletins with Katie Bowen.
Patrick, thank you and good evening. Your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. President Trump has described Iran's missile attack on a US military airbase in Qatar as a very weak response, which America has very effectively countered. This evening, he's also thanked Iran for giving the US early notice of the attack. The president's statement on Truth Social confirmed that there were no American or Qatari casualties after Iran launched 14 missiles on the American Al Udeid base, which is located southwest of Doha. President Trump said that of those 14, 13 were knocked down and one was set free because it was headed in what he called a non-threatening direction. Earlier, it was reported that air defence systems were also activated at the American Ain al-Assad base in Iraq, although it's now been confirmed that there were no Iranian attacks detected at any US military base other than in Qatar. President Trump added this evening that perhaps Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same. And in a separate post, he said, "Congratulations, world, it's time for peace." Iran's foreign minister has said tonight that Iran will be ready to respond again in case of any further action by the US. Defence Minister Luke Pollard, speaking in the House of Commons tonight, said that the UK government utterly condemns any escalation. These latest developments come as the UK issued a warning earlier on recommending UK citizens in Qatar to shelter in place until further notice. That warning has now been lifted. And in the last few moments, Iran has issued an evacuation warning for residents of Israel's Ramat Gan near Tel Aviv. That's according to Reuters. We'll bring you more on that developing story shortly. Elsewhere today, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says she's decided to prescribe Palestine action and will lay an order before Parliament next week, which, if passed, will make membership and support for the protest group illegal. That's as the Metropolitan Police Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, has expressed his shock and frustration at a protest held today in support of Palestine action. Protesters clashed with police and 13 people were arrested. On Friday, Palestine Action activists broke into RAF Brize Norton in Oxfordshire and sprayed 2 military planes with red paint in protest of the UK's support of Israel over the war in Gaza. Plans to lower energy costs for thousands of businesses by exempting them from some green energy levies have been set out as part of the government's new 10-year industrial strategy. The plan may slash energy bills by up to 25% for more than 7,000 UK businesses. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer called the industrial strategy a turning point for Britain's economy by supporting key industries where there is potential for growth. Acting Shadow Energy Secretary Andrew Bowie criticised the plans, saying that the UK needed a serious approach to energy policy. And the UK and Ukraine will work together more closely on industrial military production, Sir Keir Starmer said after meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky in Downing Street today. The Ukrainian president also met with the King at Windsor Castle. Mr Zelensky travelled to the UK to discuss his country's defences ahead of a NATO summit that starts tomorrow. He thanked the Prime Minister for supporting his country. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
OK, here we go. Welcome to Patrick Christys Tonight, late edition. Let me start by whizzing you through all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. We start with the Eye. It goes, UK is ready to defend our allies as Iran attacks American base. Can I just say there is a huge question mark over whether or not that really is true? And look at the wording of it. Defend our allies. The Labour government will still not say whether or not they back what the Americans and the Israelis are doing. Let's go to the Independent. Iran strikes back with missile attack on US base in Qatar. The picture story they've got, though, is from the Palestine Action protests in central London today that saw people wandering around in concentration camp gear. And there's a woman there with Choose Love written on her T-shirt, screaming in the face of a police officer. You love to see it. Let's go to The Guardian. Iran attack on US airbase leaves Middle East on the edge. And as I talk to you right now, the latest is that apparently Israeli fighter jets are currently over Tehran. So we expect that there's going to be some kind of development for you. The Daily Mail, this really is, I think, probably the big talking point. Whose side are you on, Sir Keir? Now, we are several days into this pitch battle. Sir Keir Starmer will not address Parliament, has not addressed Parliament, has not instructed his MPs or his ministers which side of this battle they are on, and is not going to be around tomorrow. And from what we understand, was totally blindsided by the US involvement. It's a bit of a shocker. Sir Keir Starmer is not having a good war. Let's go to The Times. Iran fires missiles at US bases in the Middle East. The Sun's front page they've gone for something different. It's non-Middle Eastern related, in a way. They say taking us for a ride. And what this is that they have got an expose that shows that people are coming across the English Channel, and within hours of them getting here illegally, they are working for Deliveroo and Just Eat and making £1,000 a week whilst operating from asylum hotels. And it's that story that we are going to lead with this evening. So let's get the thoughts of my panel. We've got GBNews contributor and comedian Leo Kurz, journalist and broadcaster Christo Fu, fast political commentator Andy Twelve. Chaps, thank you very much. Tremendous to have you on the show. Leo, I'll start with you. This Sun front page, taking us for a ride. Some more of the detail here. You know, migrants in hotels banned from working in any circumstances, but apparently just not in reality.
Yeah, I mean, why do you think they're coming here? It's ridiculous. We could end the small boats tomorrow if we just stop bribing people to come here with free accommodation and cushy jobs. Well, I don't know how cushy it is delivering a pizza in Aberdeen during winter, but, you know, they're working for like £1,000 a week. That's way more than you get, you know, anywhere that they're coming from. And it's got to be the easiest police sting in the world to do. You can literally do it by phoning up and ordering a curry. You know what I mean? Then they'd literally turn up to the police station. I've noticed so many times when I order... I'm going to stop doing it, by the way, because I feel like I'm feeding the whole system. But when I order a curry or a pizza or something like that, it comes up on Deliveroo or Just Eat as a woman. And I'm like, oh, a woman's delivering. And then it turns up and it's a bloke who doesn't want his picture taken.
Isn't that transphobic?
Yeah, I hope so.
But Chris, if you ran any other business, so if you owned like a warehouse or a restaurant and you gratuitously employed illegal migrants, you would be shut down. But it appears not if your name is Deliveroo or Just Eat.
That doesn't seem to make sense to me, because clearly the technology is out there. You need the technology to open your phone. You need the technology, Face ID, for absolutely everything nowadays. So why don't you need that kind of technology in order to open up the Deliveroo rider app in order to make sure it's actually you and not, you know, the woman or gentleman or whatever it is delivering to Leo? So the technology is clearly there. It is absolutely ridiculous that this is happening. But also, I think that we need to start joining the dots a little bit here. And I know we're going to get onto this story, but on the one hand, we rightly say, look, this is ridiculous what's happening with small boats, ridiculous the number of people that are coming here, and ridiculous that they are coming here and working and we can't track them and all of these sorts of things. Yet, meanwhile, let's bomb the hell out of Iran and wonder why we end up with all sorts of people coming here. So we do need to think beyond...
Apparently the immigration NGOs are worried that if Iranian refugees do come to the UK, then it'll make the UK whiter.
I mean, there we go.
Very good.
There we go. So, look, the Sun have got...
Are we still on air? Sorry, I just
very much
I just wanted to check.
This will be nothing compared to what happened with Lewis Schaefer last week. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm really chilled out about this. So, Andy, so we found, with the Sun go, we found Deliveroo and Just Eat accounts for rent on dozens of online forums for as little as £40 a week. Migrants exploit a loophole, allowing legitimate account holders to sublet work, even though signing up for an account is free. An undercover Sun reporter posed as a small boat migrant from Afghanistan and was offered an account 10 minutes after signing up.
Yeah, I think, you know, we can't just focus on the migrants and the small boat refugees or whomever who are taking these jobs. We've got to think about the company here as well. I mean, you know, let's not pretend this is the only issue that these large delivery companies have. They've been, you know, borderline exploiting and certainly, you know, pretty badly treating their workers for the better part of a decade. That this isn't the issue with... Funnily enough, this isn't an issue with the migrants specifically. This is an issue with the companies. The government needs to step in and combat the companies' exploitation across the board, not just these migrants. Because, you know, it says £1,000 a week. These migrants will probably be getting very little money.
But it doesn't matter.
They'll probably be getting no benefit. I agree, but, you know, it's clearly the system that's exploiting them as well.
There's also a massive safety issue here, because by definition, these people are turning up to your house.
Yeah.
OK? So, hypothetically, if you happen to be an 18-year-old girl who lives in a flat with a couple of other 18-year-old girls, and you order a pizza, and you think that so-and-so's turning up, and actually it's an illegal migrant with, let's be honest, nothing to lose, you know, there is a massive risk there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know there's some, you know, there's supposed to be some safety with the apps, and that, you know, the identity of the driver is linked to the app.
Yeah.
But then if they're using false profiles, then who knows?
Or borrowing someone else's. If you just borrow someone else's. And you're quite right. And you make a fair point. It is the responsibility of Deliveroo, but also it is the responsibility of people who come to a country where they are seeking asylum, if they are genuine, to abide by the rules of that country. And if you're told, sorry, you can't work whilst we process you, well, you have to respect that. That's not unreasonable when you go to someone's country.
I agree. And I'm not saying that these migrants or whomever it is, I haven't read the full story. I'm sure it will be available in tomorrow's The Sun. But I think, they are not in the right. They are not clear of any blame. I think they are in the wrong and they should be blamed. But I think you also have to take into account the liability that the company has and the way that they have acted, which has been inappropriate, not just with migrant workers, but with British workers.
I honestly think, seriously, that a lot of people in Britain would be willing to forego having a Thai takeaway delivered to their front room at 2 a.m. in the morning within 15 minutes if it meant that those companies stopped employing illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
I really do. I know it's really convenient and it would be really annoying if Deliveroo and Just Eat didn't exist. It would be really annoying. But I also don't want a boatload of illegal immigrants.
It would be annoying to me as a driver that they wouldn't exist, for someone who actually drives a car, because now I know why so many of them have a death wish going through red lights, because they've done a perilous journey on a dinghy. So that probably seems nothing to them going through a red light at 30 miles an hour on an electric bike.
These are jobs that used to be done by young people. We had teenagers doing the jobs like delivering pizzas, delivering things to people's houses. And now teenagers are told, no, you've got to go to some former polytechnic and get a degree in gender studies. We need to get people out of these Mickey Mouse degrees and working in the real world. And if they can make £1,000 a week, that's not getting ripped off. That's a lot more than I made.
Guys, I've got some breaking news, so everybody listen up. This is significant, very significant breaking news. So, Israel and Iran have reached a full and complete ceasefire. That's
the jets.
The news that we are hearing now. President Trump has posted this moments ago on Truth Social. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire. There's congratulations to everyone, says President Trump. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their progress. Final missions, he says, for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful, on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, courage and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East. But it didn't and never will. God bless Israel. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America. And God bless the world. So, that clears that up.
Why is he A, do Iran and Israel know this, and B, why has he written that like a sphinx? That was riddling.
You know who he sounded like? He sounded like the guy who blew the whistle in Gladiators.
Yeah.
You will go on my first whistle. That guy.
Yeah, it's what.
I don't know. Sorry, this is. We should just say this is literally just coming through to us now, so we are all hearing and seeing this for the first time, as indeed you are. It's the big breaking news. It's on the front page of most of the newspapers, the Iran conflict. So this is the development in it. A total ceasefire. Christo, do you buy it?
I mean, what's going to happen first in the next 6 hours? It's going to be in 6 hours' time. So, if you were Iran, you'd be like, right, let's throw out that nuke now. Because in 6 hours, there might not be an Israel left, or vice versa. Look, if this is true, it's brilliant. It's scaling it back. Trump has always been the man that says he can do a deal. He sat down with Kim Jong-un, he sat down with everyone else. So if he has managed to pull this off, then great, because no one wants a full-scale Middle East war, least of all Keir Starmer, because he's... Well, hang on, you are the only one that wants that, then maybe. Least of all Keir Starmer, because he will have got away with actually not having to give an opinion on the entire thing before it's all over. And so he's unclenched as we speak.
Yeah, I don't think Iran had any choice in this. It wasn't really, it's not like they sort of fought them to a standstill. It's like they just wanted to say, please stop bombing us. Like Israel and America had total air superiority over Iran. They could fly. The B-2s flew from America all the way across the ocean, refueled and bombed. They didn't take off from Qatar or anything. They went all the way there. Huge, long mission.
But you want a Middle East war?
I think it keeps the news interesting.
All right, so that's the reason.
Just say the Ayatollah's tweeted. Ayatollah's been on. He tweeted, he says, those who know the Iranian people and their history know that the Iranian nation isn't a nation that surrenders. So...
I suppose they haven't surrendered.
That was an hour ago, so... Yeah, maybe they have in a way. I don't know. I mean, so it's not technically a surrender. Just to reiterate, that big breaking news is that President Trump has announced that Israel and Iran will begin a ceasefire. That ceasefire will begin in about 6 hours' time.
That's good. That's good, though.
So you think it's good? Do you not think it also gets Keir Starmer off the hook a bit here?
Oh, massively.
Because he has gone missing, hasn't he, for the last couple of days?
I'd be upset if I was, the editor-at-large of the Daily Mail, if I've wasted a front page on a question that's redundant now. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's ended, who cares?
By the way, can we say that if this is the repeat people are watching, it's going to be in, 40 minutes' time?
That's a very good point, Christo. Yes.
Tweet us.
If you're if you are watching this...
So someone message Eamon. Is it Eamon this morning?
5:20 in the morning now, you are 40 minutes away from a Middle Eastern ceasefire.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, great.
Well done.
So with the conditions that... I'll be honest, I'm clearly thick. I didn't understand what he was saying there. What about... So, in the 6th hour, Iran's going to stop. In the 12th hour, Israel's going to stop. Yeah. And then in the 24th hour...
I'm going to read it again. I'll tell you what, I'll read it again, and then we'll digest it in the next segment, all right? So this is what President Trump has just put out. This is in relation to the ongoing issues, of course, in the Middle East. So he says... where are we now? Yes, it has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire. He says that in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down their completed their in-progress final missions. So for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire, and upon the 24th hour, an official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. So it seems as though they're saying that, yes, this will be a mutually respected ceasefire. So we'll have to wait and see about that, won't we? But yes, when we come back, we're going to be talking a bit more about this big breaking news. It appears to now be a ceasefire in the Middle East. We're going to zone in a bit, I think, on that Daily Mail front page. Whose side are you on, Sir Keir? And, of course, talk about the Palestine Action protest that we had today that saw people wandering around dressed as concentration camp victims and attacking police officers with words like "choose love" written on their shirts. So we'll talk about that. Oh, and big news about the moon. It might be about to get blown up, but not by the Ayatollah. So stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Well, we have found some peacocks, so we've been speaking to people today, hearing from them how much of a nuisance they say they are. It is a real mix, though, here. Some people saying that actually they're all right, they're part of the furniture of this village now. You can see this peacock here showing all of its feathers. I'm going to be very honest with you. We have just seen it attempt to mate the peahen that you can see behind it there. And this showing of feathers is part of the thing, what they do to try, part of the mating call here as well, to try and show all of the feathers off and everything like that. And there's a thing that they do train rattling as well. I wonder if Mr. Peacock might talk to us. Mr. Peacock, would you?
Come on, Jack. Come on, Jack. We need you to get involved.
Not sure. GB News, Jack
This is your big David Attenborough moment, Jack.
Any questions to say to the nuisance you might be causing people? Any response?
Although this feels a little bit intimate now. There's a bit of a moment going on. It's all got a bit voyeuristic.
Very happy to talk to us so far this morning, but some residents of Tutbury here have spoken to us this morning. Take a listen to what they've told us about what they think about all these peacocks.
They've been here longer than I have, so I've lived in the house I live in at the top here 47 years. They've been there all that time, because they were from the castle to start with. The people at the castle used to have them, and they're just part of the village.
I hate them. When they do all that damage, it's heartbreaking, you know. Yeah, round them up and take them to a farm or a zoo, where they're supposed to be.
They're like the furniture. They should stay around here. You know, people just need to let them get on with what they are. They're nature's animals, and they deserve to live around here, don't they?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight Late Edition. So, the Middle East is on the edge, or at least it certainly was, because today started like this. Iran sent a volley of missiles at the Al Udeid military base in Qatar, lighting up the Doha sky. The Qatari air defence systems intercepted all of those missiles after Iran helpfully gave a bit of a warning. It's almost like the last thing Iran actually wants is war with America. And President Trump seemed quite happy enough. He described the response as very weak and claimed that, well, basically what he wanted then was Israel and Iran to proceed to peace. Well, guess what? Minutes ago, right here on this show, we revealed that he got what he wanted, because President Trump has just announced a complete and total ceasefire. What a day. I guess that we can all be happy that the Middle East may have stepped away from the brink, apart from Leo, who wanted war. But, you know, it'll happen one day, Leo. It'll happen one day. I do think it's got the Prime Minister off the hook, though. I mean, let's bring up the front page of the Daily Mail, because this is the one, you know. As Iran retaliates by launching missile barrage at the US base in Qatar, Labour still can't bring themselves to back America. So whose side are you on, Sir Keir? And this is where we are, Leo, isn't it? I mean, we have a Prime Minister and a government who, during what was, until the ceasefire, one of the biggest crises we've ever seen, unable to pick a side. He's not even in the country.
But Britain's a different country to the country it was 20, 25 years ago when Tony Blair stood shoulder to shoulder with George W. Bush. You know, even though that turned out to not be, you know, such a great idea. But Britain now, our demographics have changed, and we also seem to be we have a larger sort of radical left element. But you've got to remember, 85% of British Muslims used to vote for the Labour Party, and I'm pretty sure Labour would want those voters back. So if they side, you know, just stand boots in the sand with Israel and with America, they're going to alienate those voters even further. So I can understand why Starmer's maybe equivocating a bit on this.
Yeah, well, I'll put that to you, Andy. I mean, you know, do you think that we are witnessing a Labour government here who's unable to take a position because they're very, very afraid of losing the Muslim vote, which they've already lost to an extent?
I mean, they've already lost the Muslim vote. I think, you know, the election of the 5 independents at the last general election, the fallout, the vote loss to a lot of regional independents in last year's local elections and this year's local elections, I would say the Labour Party's already lost the Muslim vote, whatever that means. I don't think that this will be driving their foreign policy, though. I think, you know, the FCDO is an extremely competent branch of the civil service. I imagine he's not quoted aside because he probably knew that ceasefire talks were going on, to be honest.
And this is, I'll put this to you, Christo,
but he didn't know that the attack was happening, did he? So
no.
Why would he know that the ceasefire was happening?
I think they're probably, you know, the diplomatic side and the military side are separate. In fairness,
So,
I think
it's not that basically we've just been frozen out because our government is a little bit flimsy and floppy.
I think they are flimsy and floppy. I think they've got a pretty good relationship with Trump, as he said. You know, not last week we were on this show when Trump was describing him as a really great guy. I think it's irresponsible if the US administration have genuinely frozen out a NATO country from these kind of discussions.
But don't you think it's quite important when there is an international conflict taking place like this, which could lead to World War III, that His Majesty's government takes a position? Yeah. You know, the Armed Forces Minister didn't answer whether they supported...
In fact, have we got that clip? Sorry, keep talking, but can we get that clip of Luke Pollard up? Because we had that before, so let's ask your talk.
So the Armed Forces Minister was asked, I think it was 7 times, which we're about to see, whether the UK supports the American action against Iran. Obviously, this has gone on for 12 days now. I mean, even if, they're being strategic or whatever, they have to pick a side, don't they?
Yeah, I think they should, but I think it's not.
Well, then you can't say that, that they're competent and all of this kind of stuff.
What if they pick the wrong side? That's my worry. That they're going to pick...
But you're not... But thankfully, and we all breathe a sigh of relief, you're not Prime Minister.
But there's so many radical leftists in the Labour Party and in the country. I'm not certain... We've got one right here. But I'm not certain... I'm not certain that they'd actually pick the correct side. I mean, Britain's changed, and Britain's going to change. In another 20 years, I think Britain will be siding with Iran.
Let's play this clip now, which is Luke Pollard, the Armed Forces Minister, on Nick Ferrari's breakfast show earlier on, unable to answer during one of the biggest international events of modern times, unable to say which side we're on.
It's a simple one, Minister. Are we for or against the American activity on the weekend? For or against?
Well, the American activity has now happened. They've taken those steps to deal with the threat. And what we have, as a country, what we have been focused on over the past few weeks... You don't know
whether we're supportive, whether we support or oppose it. Am I hearing correctly that the Armed Forces Minister...
What we're focusing on is the diplomatic solution that resolves this crisis.
I just want to clarify that the Armed Forces Minister for His Majesty's government doesn't know whether he supports or opposes American activity on the weekend, our supposedly closest ally, and you don't have a view.
No, neither did Rachel Reeves, by the way. The Prime Minister wasn't in the country, isn't coming back to the country. David Lammy gave a statement in the House of Commons that repeated that as well. It's a complete circus. It's an absolute...
They're your friends. These are your friends.
Circus.
I mean, I think if they were my personal friends, I'd be working for them. But I think, it's
rubbish.
No, come on. People.
I think if you're the Armed Forces Minister of the government, you're probably taking a role in mediation between the two sides. I think it's irresponsible to go on any breakfast television and be caught like that. You go on Nick Ferrari and you know what you're going to get. Yeah. He shouldn't have been surprised to have been scuppered by Nick Ferrari if he isn't willing to state his side.
That's exactly it. It's the basic question. Actually, it's the basic question. If it can't be answered, and people don't forget times like this. Times like this, and when your politicians go missing, they tend to remember that. Let's just go on to The Independent, which is already on your screens there. So The Independent front page, they've actually got basically the local reaction to it, haven't they, which is this Palestine Action protest that took place today. Now, Palestine Action, we need to remind ourselves, we're behind the Bryce Norton attack. Still no arrests to that, which is remarkable. So today, people came out in support of Palestine Action ahead of them being a proposed terror group. That's a man there dressed as a concentration camp survivor or victim.
He made that outfit, or did he go to a shop and ask for it? Or...
Yeah, but what a scumbag.
Yeah.
Yes,
what a total scumbag. These people are just wandering around the streets. I mean, Leo, what do you think when you see all that stuff going on already?
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, the far left, they'll support... It might seem that the far left don't have any consistency in the issues that they support. They support gender ideology, they support radical Islam. Basically, they support anything that attacks the West, that attacks capitalism, that attacks what we are, what Britain is, what America is.
In fairness, in Iran, there is an awful lot of transgender people because they just force all the gays to go through it.
That's you've got a choice.
At least they're aligned there a little bit.
Death or transition. It's sort of like going to school in the UK. It's when your gender counsellor gets hold of you. So yeah, they're not so different. But this is in Iran in 1979. The far left, the socialists, allied with the Islamists to overthrow the Shah, and this should be a warning to leftists in the UK, because once the Islamists won, once they overthrew the Shah, they didn't get the socialist paradise they wanted. All the socialists got locked up, got executed, hung from cranes. They just got the Islamists, didn't they? They just got the Islamists.
Yeah, which everyone can see is how it will always go. Yeah. Right? That's how it's the only way that battle's going to go.
But I will say, if you want to protest what is happening in Israel and Gaza, I think I'm still going to stand by the fact you have the right to do that peacefully. I would find it a little bit offensive to dress as a concentration camp victim or to start screaming hysterically in the face of police officers.
Well,
but if you want to do that, I think you should be allowed.
That's all right. Let's just, one last time before we move on, we'll bring up the front of that Independent again, because the picture there is a woman with what I think is a Choose Love T-shirt on at the front of the Independent. Choose love, she says. There we are. As she is pointing and screaming in the face of a police officer with another hysterical woman next to her there. It just seems a little bit ridiculous, doesn't it?
Kudos to the picture editor of the Independent for choosing that. I mean, it's pretty good. But I think, whoever dressed up as that concentration camp victim is disgusting. I think, most right-minded people who support Palestine or are protesting in favour of Palestine would go, that's disgusting.
But they don't, though, do they? But that's the point, they don't. And they walk around with a banner that says what the Ayatollah, be on the right side of history, to pick the Ayatollah.
I mean, this is something else. We've got charities in this country, like the Islamic Human Rights Commission, whose logo was on that poster, that pro-Ayatollah poster, and they're a government-funded charity. They've had tens of thousands of pounds from the government. Why is taxpayers' money being given to radical groups that hate us?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been... Obviously, they're not here to defend themselves, but, their logo was on that poster, so,
But this is why groups like Palestine Action end up being categorised as terror groups, which I know you completely agree with, don't you?
I don't think they... I don't think that they should be prescribed as a terror group.
But they are a terror group.
I mean, I don't think they are. I think, when you line up...
In the eyes of
ISIS,
the law, they are.
Well, they're not yet.
But if they are prosecuted for it, they are.
If you line up ISIS, Al-Qaeda and Palestine Action, you've got two radical Islamist groups who kill people and want to dominate the world, and then you've got, a couple of middle-class university students who threw a bit of paint in a...
Who carried out a violent...
It's not the same thing.
We can see it.
In the eyes of the 2000 terror legislation, it isn't the same. It is the same as a terror attack.
It shouldn't be the same just because it's got a low threshold.
Into the engine of a British military aircraft.
I don't think it's the same as being in ISIS or in Al-Qaeda, no. To be honest.
This is a serious thing. I mean, this is a military base. Our military is sacred anyway, but this is, our strategic defence. If somebody declared war on Britain at this moment, we might not be able to defend ourselves.
With the RAF
I don't know why they weren't...
How did they get on there?
Why weren't they shot? Why weren't they shot?
Why weren't they shot? Why weren't they shot?
If they were, they would have... I bet you the army people and the military would have been prosecuted.
Would have been prosecuted. I know a certain Attorney General who might be willing to represent them as well. Anyway, right, coming up...
Very good.
Shifting tone, this. Robot kebab workers and defence spending going on Channel Migrants. It's almost time for the inside stories, and apparently big stuff's about to happen to the moon. Stay tuned.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, it's fine out there this evening, but we are going to see some wet weather working its way in, bringing a wet start for many tomorrow. A more humid feel tomorrow. It's been quite fresh today with a brisk westerly wind. And these weather fronts are now approaching, bringing cloud and rain across Northern Ireland through the evening. Nothing too heavy at this stage, but could see some heavy pulses developing later in the night across Northern Ireland and then across parts of northwest England and North Wales, along with much of southern Scotland. It turns soggy through the early hours. Further east and further south, most areas staying dry. Reasonably warm night. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens. On to Tuesday, and as I said, a bit of a wet start for some, particularly northwest England, North Wales, southwest Scotland. Some of that rain at times getting to the east of the Pennines. Much of East Anglia in the southeast starting dry. May well start off with a bit of sunshine here, but quite grey for South Wales, southwest England. There's that zone of wet weather over Northern Ireland, northwest England and southern Scotland. Some breaks in the cloud a little further north, but again here we'll see further showers coming in at times across the far northwest. So as I said, it is a bit of a messy picture. The rain across northern England's likely to last on and off through much of the morning. Same goes for North Wales. Some of it getting to the east of the Pennines, but a decent chance that areas here will stay dry. Not much rain at all getting to East Anglia, the Midlands, and here actually better chance of seeing some breaks in the cloud come the afternoon. That will lift the temperatures. Quite warm if the sun pops out, 25, maybe 26 or a degree or so higher. And quite a humid feel for England and Wales. Again, a bit fresher for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Wednesday's a largely dry day. Maybe this cloudier zone over the Midlands and South Wales generating a little bit of rain. And late in the day, we could see some thunderstorms drifting up from France across eastern England. So that is something we need to watch as the heat and humidity start to build again, with temperatures perhaps here on Wednesday Wednesday, getting into the high 20s. Bye for now.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight Late Edition. Let me round up tomorrow's front pages for you, or today's, in fact, if you're watching us in the morning. So let's start with the eye. UK is ready to defend our allies as Iran attacks American base. The Independent. Iran strikes back with missile attack on US base in Qatar. The Guardian. Iran attack on US air bases leaves Middle East on the edge. The Daily Mail. So whose side are you on, Sir Keir? The Times. Iran fires missiles at US bases in Middle East. The Sun has probably the most interesting front page in many respects, taking us for a ride. It's illegal migrants who are working as Deliveroo drivers and Just Eat drivers a few hours after arriving in the country. For what it's worth, I should just remind you at this point of the breaking news that we've had that President Trump has announced on Truth Social that Israel and Iran have reached a total ceasefire that is going to start in about, well, depending on what time you're watching this. If you're watching this live now, in about 5 hours' time. If you're watching this in the morning, in about 40 minutes' time. So there you go. Anyway, welcome to my wonderful panel, of course. GB News contributor and comedian Leo Kirst, journalist and broadcaster Christo Fufas, and political commentator Andy Twelves. Let's go for some inside stories. So this is inside the eye, apparently, tomorrow. Labour is going to try to use spending on roads, net zero projects, on rural broadband and illegal migrants to count towards the new NATO target to spend 5% of the UK's income on national security. Sir Keir Starmer has signed up to a NATO commitment to dedicate 3.5% of gross domestic product on core defence and a further 1.5% on resilience and security, covering wider homeland security and national resilience. So we're fudging the numbers on defence spending again.
Yeah, this is just dodgy accounting. This is like doing your tax return and saying, oh, those beers that I had with my mates, that was a business meeting.
Yeah.
This is the exact same thing. And the thing is, this is pointless because we need the money spent on defence, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's quite a lot of wars and things going on in the world right now, so Britain might need to actually fight. And then if you've got...
Still in favour of those wars, are you, now that you know that we're going to have new roads as a result of them?
Now that I've seen it's only 3.5%, oh my God, we'd have a chance at 5%, but...
No, but this is it. Why can't we just spend it on the army?
Because they can't afford it, firstly. Secondly, they've borrowed right, left and centre, and millionaires are fleeing like there's no tomorrow. They've made all of these false promises so that, you know, as Leo says, they're just going to recategorise war as, you know, Maggie in Wigan having a bit of broadband so that she can play the bingo.
But it's lies. I mean, I nearly swore that. I just used a word beginning with B, right? But it is, isn't it? Because well, we can all see this. I mean, Leo makes a good point. If you submitted your tax return to HMRC and you fudged the bucks as much as this government does in defence spending, you'd probably go to prison.
I mean, yeah. I mean, HMRC would... I don't know. 2 beers with friends, technically, that's not tax deductible. It'd have to be with an employee of yours as well, then it'd be sustenance. But that's by the by. I think...
You've actually done this.
HMRC isn't here to defend itself. But I think, you know, a lot of these are actually about national security. You know, we live in an age of cyber warfare, of energy cut-off. We need to ensure that the resilience of our national assets, whether it's broadband, whether it's energy pipelines, whether it's, you know, water, whether it's gas, we need to ensure that these things are protected, both physically and, you know, in the cyberspace. This is important. We are in a new age of warfare. It's not just, you know, working class lads shooting each other with guns. We do live in an age of hacking.
But doesn't the pursuit of net zero, and haven't there been examples? I mean, I think what we saw in with the blackouts in parts of Spain, wasn't it? That we saw? And also,
the whole of Spain.
The whole of Spain, parts of Spain, the whole of Spain. But also isn't some of that as a result of the pursuit of net zero? So if we pursue net zero some more, won't that actually lead to us having less security than more of it?
Well, I think it depends on the level of transition and the level of investment in, you know, core security.
Possibly. No, right, this is a story close to many people's hearts. It's kebabs. OK, so the high street chain German doner kebab, which can I just say is just Turkish kebabs, which happens to be a load of Turkish people in Germany, but anyway, German doner kebab is to trial the use of robotic meat shavers in their stores to save money. So they have more than 150 stores in the UK. They plan to roll out so-called smart kitchens to combat rising labour costs. So another victory for the Labour government here, isn't it? Instead of you know, employing more people, they decided to sack them all and employ robots because Rachel Reeves doesn't charge national insurance on robots. But yet. But anyway, Andy, you've been to one of these.
It wasn't a GDK,
right?
And it was a small independent kebab shop.
So even the small independent kebab shops have stopped employing human beings. Great. Well done, Rachel.
Istanbul Kebab in Bethnal Green, and obviously other kebab shops are available. It was fantastic.
Not for the employees, it wasn't.
Well, to be fair, the employees were still there. They were just, you know, waving people in and out the door because it was
that's grim, isn't it?
Watching
the robot that's about to.
Well, I think there is a point of automation here. You know, automation is coming. It's not just the Labour government's fault that automation is here. I think the Labour government's responsibility here is to ensure that those workers that will be displaced from small things, things that seem small to us but are actually people's careers, and skill them up into jobs that are future-proof. And I think that is the role of the government here.
It's annoying. It's annoying there's an extra 250,000 of them since last year then under this government's policies, isn't it?
Apprenticeships?
No. The number of PAYE workers went down, I think, 100,000 in April and about 250,000 since this time last year.
Oh, it's great to hear that Andy is such a hard-nosed capitalist. I totally agree with this. I think we need this. We've just been speaking about how Deliveroo and Just Eat are sucking in all these people from across the channel. If we have robo-taxis, if we have robo-kebab makers, if we have robot everything, then they're going to do the jobs that people would be coming across the channel to do. This is going to remove the carrot that is dragging so many people here.
Just robot the living daylights out of my doner kebab.
Smuggling gangs.
What? Probably, yeah, probably. Right, OK, so, coming up... Could this be the end of the moon as we know it? Get ready for some devastating news.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Following a peak in the temperatures across the western Mediterranean in the last few days, it is now turning fresher. There are a few showers to watch out for, particularly across areas of Iberia. Generally, though, further east, it's high pressure in charge, and that's allowing the heat to also transfer eastwards. Particularly parts of northern Italy into the Balkans will see those temperatures climbing, but the high pressure also means there'll be plentiful amounts of sunshine for these regions right throughout the week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys' Night Late Edition. As you can see, we've gone to space, or at least just left the Earth's atmosphere anyway, because this is the end of the moon as we know it. A giant asteroid could crash into the moon in 2032, firing debris towards Earth. And while the impact could pose a serious risk to satellites orbiting the Earth, it could also create a spectacular meteor shower in the skies. Telescope observations revealed asteroid 2024 YR4, remember the name, is classed as, quote, a city killer, and it had a 3% chance of colliding with Earth earlier this year. Well, later observations found the likelihood of the asteroid hitting Earth was low, although the moon is apparently still under threat. And this is apparently exactly what it will look like. That's it. We don't. No one. The person who went to the effort to make that graphic thought, not going to bother with the explosion. Anyway, right. I'm joined now by astronomer and author Dr. David Whitehouse. Dr. David, thank you very, very much. So, is there something going to hit the moon in 2032 then and kill us all?
I'm afraid to disappoint you, but it's going to be spectacular. But it could pose no threat to the moon, or indeed to people. You're quite right. Had this thing struck the Earth in a city region, it would have been devastating. But it's going to hit the moon. Remember, it's only 200
Wait, sorry,
feet
hang on a
across.
minute. So it is actually going to hit the moon?
Well, a 5% chance, which is quite high in these terms, because there's an awful lot of space out there and things generally miss. So although when we pick up this object again in 3 or 4 years' time, it's currently out of range, we'll know a lot better about the probabilities. But 5% is high enough to discuss and talk about. And this thing, remember, is 200 feet across. The moon is 2,000 miles across. So it's not going to push the moon, it's not going to affect the moon. But because it's traveling so fast, there's going to be quite a spectacular explosion should it hit. And the debris will certainly dirty up the Earth-Moon environment for many years to come.
Yeah, I mean, will it pose any impact to us here on Earth? I mean, do we risk being hit? Will it throw our tides off? I mean, it does sound quite bad for the moon.
No, the moon is so big, it's not going to affect the moon's orbit. It's a good job we have the moon, in fact. The moon has influenced our evolution ever since the Earth was young. And it's one of the reasons why the Earth was ripe for life. So we should be pleased the moon is there, and we should be pleased the moon is under no danger. But certainly the debris thrown up by this stuff could cause spectacular meteor showers for many years to come after the impact.
Should we try to stop it hitting the moon? And if it does hit the moon, will we be able to see it if we look up?
Well, we may well be able to see the moon, and it would be a spectacular event because this chunk of rock's traveling at something like 17,000 miles an hour. It's really whizzing through space. It carries a lot of energy, and when it smashes into the moon, if it's on a visible side of the moon, and it looks as though from rough calculations it could be, that will be spectacular. The most devastating impact on the moon for perhaps 10 or 20,000 years, as far as we can tell. So it would be astronomically fascinating in terms of the damage it caused and the debris it threw up into space, but no threat to people on Earth.
Good. And I tell you what a nice note to end on. Dr. David, thank you very, very much. Tremendous insight. Dr. David Whitehouse, there, astronomer and author, No Threat to Life on Earth. Both him or the asteroid.
Desperate for it to hit. You listen to you little moon mongerer, weren't you? Come on, is it going to hit the moon? Is it going to hit the moon?
I mean, just imagine the headlines. It also puts things into perspective. I've got to tell you now that tomorrow's newspaper front page is a final run through. We go with the Eye. UK's ready to defend our allies as Iran attacks American base. The Independent, Iran strikes back. Then we go to the Guardian, Iran attack on US airbase. Then we go to the Daily Mail, whose side are you on, Sir Keir? The Times, Iran fires missiles at US base. The Sun taking us for a ride. It's migrants who are working illegally in Britain. Just on the Middle East stuff, the breaking news we had at the start of this show was that apparently a ceasefire has now been reached between Iran and Israel, so all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are bang out of date. But anyway, thank you very much to my wonderful panel, Leo and Christo and Andy. I will be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Breakfast is hurtling your way like that asteroid towards the moon. The only difference, of course, is that breakfast definitely is going to hit hard, and that is going to actually happen in just a few minutes' time. Thank you very much, Christo. Just filling for time, which now I don't have to do. Bye. OK, well done. All right.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many, it's fine out there this evening, but we are going to see some wet weather working its way in, bringing a wet start for many tomorrow. A more humid feel tomorrow. It's been quite fresh today with a brisk westerly wind. And these weather fronts are now approaching, bringing cloud and rain across Northern Ireland through the evening. Nothing too heavy at this stage, but could see some heavy pulses developing later in the night across Northern Ireland and then across parts of northwest England and North Wales, along with much of southern Scotland. It turns soggy through the early hours. Further east and further south, most areas staying dry. Reasonably warm night. Temperatures mostly holding up in the teens. On to Tuesday, and as I said, a bit of a wet start for some, particularly northwest England, North Wales, southwest Scotland. Some of that rain at times getting to the east of the Pennines. Much of East Anglia in the southeast starting dry. May well start off with a bit of sunshine here, but quite grey for South Wales, southwest England. There's that zone of wet weather over Northern Ireland, northwest England and southern Scotland. Some breaks in the cloud a little further north, but again here we'll see further showers coming in at times across the far northwest. So as I said, it is a bit of a messy picture. The rain across northern England's likely to last on and off through much of the morning. Same goes for North Wales. Some of it getting to the east of the Pennines, but a decent chance that areas here will stay dry. Not much rain at all getting to East Anglia, the Midlands, and here actually better chance of seeing some breaks in the cloud come the afternoon. That will lift the temperatures. Quite warm if the sun pops out, 25, maybe 26 or a degree or so higher. And quite a humid feel for England and Wales. Again, a bit fresher for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Wednesday's a largely dry day. Maybe this cloudier zone over the Midlands and South Wales generating a little bit of rain. And late in the day, we could see some thunderstorms drifting up from France across eastern England. So that is something we need to watch as the heat and humidity start to build again, with temperatures perhaps here on Wednesday getting into the high 20s. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters. Real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah,
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
A very good evening and welcome to the show. This is GB News Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. On tonight's show, Iran launches missiles at US bases in Qatar and Iraq. And that's in response to strikes on its nuclear sites over the weekend. The good news for now is that Qatari officials have confirmed that they successfully intercepted all missiles, and we're hearing reports of no casualties on the ground. But the status of the missiles headed towards Iraq is still currently unknown. Could the breakdown in the Middle East hurtle us towards World War III? And meanwhile, back here in the United Kingdom today, Nigel Farage launched a so-called Robin Hood tax, snatching £250,000 from wealthy foreigners to hand £600 cash bonuses to Britain's lowest earning workers. Bold patriotism, or is it merely socialism in disguise?
They say, why do we bother? Because the people next door do nothing, and they're pretty much as well off as we are.
Is this a great British idea, or is it just Corbynism with a new rosette? That's all coming up on tonight's show. Well, show's pleasure to have your company. Dramatic news in this past hour as six missiles went to stand have hurtled towards that US air base in Qatar. It's the biggest US air base in the entire region with some 10,000 troops. The good news is, as we understand it, those missiles have all been successfully intercepted. Is this the Ayatollah having a PR win, shoving missiles out he knew would never get through, or are we hurtling towards something altogether more serious? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do that. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Katie Bowen.
Martin, thank you and good evening. Your top stories at 7:02. And breaking news tonight is that Iran has launched a missile operation against US military bases in Qatar and Iraq. It's understood that President Trump is currently in the Situation Room, with the White House saying that they are closely monitoring potential threats to the Al Udeid base in Qatar and Ain al-Assad base in Iraq. Qatari officials confirmed that they successfully intercepted all of those missiles. Reports are that the Trump administration was aware in advance of Iran's attack on the Al Udeid base. Meanwhile, Iran reportedly coordinated the attacks on those bases with Qatari officials and gave advance notice that attacks were coming to minimise casualties. And on that note, no US casualties have been reported after Iran attacked the Al Udeid airbase with short and medium-range missiles. That's according to two US officials. Defence Minister Luke Pollard, speaking in the House of Commons a short while ago, said that the UK government utterly condemns any escalation. These latest developments come as the UK issued a warning earlier recommending UK citizens in Qatar to shelter in place until further notice, and Qatar announced that it was temporarily shutting its airspace. The RAF evacuated 63 British nationals from Israel to Cyprus earlier, with more flights to come. Foreign Secretary David Lammy told the Commons this afternoon. That's as a British national was injured in Israel during missile attacks by Iran. We'll bring you more on this developing story as we get it throughout the night. Elsewhere today, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says she's decided to prescribe Palestine action and will lay an order before Parliament next week, which, if passed, will make membership and support for the protest group illegal. That's as the Metropolitan Police Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, expressed his shock and frustration at a protest held today in support of Palestine action. Protesters clashed with police, and at least 2 people have been arrested at the protest as we know it. On Friday, Palestine action activists broke into RAF Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire and sprayed 2 military planes with red paint in protest of the UK's support of Israel over the war in Gaza, which the Chancellor called totally unacceptable. Plans to lower energy costs for thousands of businesses by exempting them from some green energy levies has been set out as part of the government's new 10-year industrial strategy. The plan may slash energy bills by up to 25% for more than 7,000 UK businesses. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer called the industrial strategy a turning point for Britain's economy by supporting key industries where there is potential for growth. Acting Shadow Energy Secretary Andrew Bowie criticised the plans, saying that the UK needed a serious approach to energy policy. And the UK and Ukraine will work together more closely on industrial military production, Sir Keir Starmer has said after meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky in Downing Street today. The Ukrainian president also met with the King at Windsor Castle. Mr Zelensky travelled to the UK to discuss his country's defences ahead of a NATO summit that starts tomorrow. He thanked British troops for supporting his country. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, in a shocking escalation of the Middle East conflict, Iran has launched multiple missiles at US bases in Qatar and in Iraq. Explosions have been heard over the Qatari capital of Doha. Qatar has issued a statement strongly condemning the attack and has said its air defence successfully intercepted the missiles. Now, as we speak, President Donald Trump is now in the West Wing attending a National Security Council meeting with the White House, briefing that they are monitoring threats to all US air bases. And according to Iranian state media, the missiles send a clear and explicit message to America in that the world will not leave any attack on its territorial integrity, sovereignty and national security unanswered under any circumstances. Well, for a full update of the latest, let's join now now our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome to the show. So in this past hour, those missiles went in. We spoke about an hour ago. What's the latest? Are there any confirmation of any casualties or indeed of any missiles causing any damage to US bases on the ground there?
Good evening, Martin. Yeah, we can bring you right up to date with that. And thus far, it seems good news. The Pentagon confirming that there have been no US casualties in what was an attack on the Al Udeid air base in Qatar, an attack using short to medium range ballistic missiles fired, we understand, from Iran. Now, clearly the situation has been confused over the last hour and a bit with reports that US airbase in Iraq was also targeted. However, the Pentagon and US officials are not confirming that. They are only confirming that one site was attacked, and that was the Al Udeid airbase in Qatar. So that an update on what we heard earlier, and again, good news if it was only one site targeted. Having said that, it's all relative, isn't it? It's not good news that this nation, Iran, has decided to lob ballistic missiles over into another country and into a US airbase. What I will say, though, and it sounds a bit counterintuitive perhaps, but this might be the measured response that the US can live with, because what we understand is that through intermediaries, the Iranians alerted the US and indeed the Qataris to what they were planning several hours before this attack took place. And that would explain alerts that I got a bit earlier, Martin, which told me that the US Embassy and in fact the State Department was warning US citizens in Qatar to shelter in place until further notice. So clearly the information, the warning that they had got from the Iranians through those intermediaries, they then put into motion an operation to protect the base and to ensure that those citizens in Qatar were as safe as they could be, to hunker down in their local addresses and stay there until this was all over. Now, is it all over? That's the big question. If this was one attack, and according to the Iranians, Martin, they used the same number of missiles as the bombs that were dropped on the nuclear complexes, I can only imagine that they're talking about the bunker-busting bombs, which were about 14 in number, because we're told about a dozen missiles came over from Iran. So it wouldn't be the totality of that operation, which saw, according to the US, some 75 precision-guided munitions that were used on all of those nuclear complexes. If it had been that many missiles that had come from Iran, one, I doubt their ability to be able to launch that number, given how Israel has degraded their surface-to-surface launching capabilities over recent days. But two, it would be such a very significant step up in response that would probably elicit a response from the White House, from the American administration. Now, you mentioned there that Donald Trump is in the West Wing. That is absolutely true. We're told that he was down in the Situation Room, watching with the other head Secretary of State for Defense, other military officials in there, watching the events unfold and planning exactly what they would do to mitigate for any attack coming over. And of course now, obviously, trying to decide if any response is required, Martin.
Thank you, Mark White there. The world, for now, can breathe a sigh of relief. No casualties on the ground and no reported damage to US bases there. Thank you very much, Mark White. Let's bring in my next guest. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp. Mr. Philp, welcome to the show. Obviously, very concerning news coming in, but for now, it seems no casualties, and all eyes now will be on what Donald Trump's next move is.
Good evening, Martin. Yes, that's right. I think Donald Trump made an entirely understandable decision to seek to eliminate Iran's nuclear weapons capability after he had previously, I think, and privately given them an ultimatum which then expired. I think it is merciful that no casualties have resulted in Iran's retaliation. I think those countries like Qatar, of course, Arab countries who completely condemned Iran's response are right to do so. And it's thankful that those Iranian missiles didn't cause any damage. I don't think Iran has any justification for retaliatory action, particularly given that America's strikes were targeted at nuclear and other military installations and military personnel, which of course contrasts Iran's response into Israel, where they've been hitting civilian sites, which is completely reprehensible.
And perhaps, Chris Philp, this has all of the hallmarks of what will be allowed to be sold to the Iranian people via state propaganda as a victory, responding to Donald Trump's aggression while actually not causing any damage that would precipitate a wholesome response from Donald Trump in return. But Chris Philp, could I ask you about the British political situation? A lot of people have been thinking that it's been rather embarrassing for the United Kingdom's position in all of this, because Keir Starmer, David Lammy, they seem to be of the intent that de-escalation was certain. And then Donald Trump completely ignored that. Benjamin Netanyahu also appears not briefing the United Kingdom on its next move. Do you think that the United Kingdom has been shoved to one side in this, is somewhat obsolete, not seen as an ally now of either the United States or Israel?
Well, it's clear that Keir Starmer and David Lammy were out of the loop and haven't really had any influence over the various protagonists in this conflict. That much is clear, and they haven't really been able to articulate a very clear position on this. They're essentially sitting on the fence, aren't they, in an effort to try and offend nobody, which is pretty weak and not what you expect from a national leader.
Do you think that is just an embarrassment for our international standing and certainly a very testing thing for the so-called special relationship?
Yeah, I think it is embarrassing that Keir Starmer has been unable to take a clear position on this important issue. It shows a complete lack of leadership, and it reveals him to be a weak leader. I mean, we see this a lot domestically, for example, over his complete inability to sort out illegal immigration across the Channel. We see him being weak there. And now we see him being, again, weak on the international stage because he essentially can't make his mind up and he can't get off the fence. He's just sitting on the fence to avoid actually saying anything decisive one way or the other. And that is not how you expect strong leaders to behave.
And Chris Philp, when we talk of regime change, the toppling of the Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran, do you think that's the best thing for the stability across the Middle East and also the best thing for ending Islamism, stamping out the cancer of Islamic fundamentalism, not only in the Middle East, but also with implications on our own shores?
Well, there's no question that the Iranian regime is a brutal one, which has been repressing its own people for a very long time now, whether that's cases of that tragic case of a young woman who chose to just walk down the street without wearing a headscarf, which of course is her right to do, and she was carted off by the religious police and murdered in custody. We've seen the Iranian regime murdering their own citizens who have been protesting. We've seen the Iranian regime sponsor terrorism around the world. They've even sponsored attacks right here on British soil, where Iranian journalists who have been criticising the Iranian regime have been targeted by criminals at the behest of the Iranian regime to try and murder them. And at one time, an Iranian TV station had to relocate out of London for their own safety for a period of time. I think, thankfully, they're now back. So that gives you, I think, the repressing and murdering people on their own soil, sponsoring terrorism around the world, and pursuing and harassing and attacking dissidents on other people's territory, including UK territory, tells you, I think, a lot about the Iranian regime. But, I think ultimately, I believe in democracy. I think the Iranian people should have their say, and it would seem that the Iranian people are pretty fed up of the brutal regime that's been oppressing them now for nearly 50 years.
OK, thank you for joining us on the show this evening. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp, it was a pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much. Now, coming up, President Trump is currently attending a National Security Council meeting. How will the US respond to this latest flagrant attack against American forces on the brink of a wider conflict? Or is there still room and time for restraint? That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain. So he can say whatever he wants. A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubney. Now, we continue our coverage of Iran's attacks against the US air bases in the Middle East. President Donald Trump is currently attending a National Security Council meeting. US officials are briefing that the Trump administration was anticipating Tehran would retaliate after US strikes on Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend. And the president does not want any more military engagement in the region. However, the senior White House officials said that President Donald Trump is willing to escalate US military involvement if necessary. So just how will the US respond to this attack? Well, let's get to my next guest. I'm joined by Tobias Ellwood, the former Defence Secretary. Tobias Ellwood, welcome to the show. Pleasure, as always, to have your esteemed company. So what do you think happens next?
That is the question. The situation remains very fluid, as you've just been discussing, and we try to appreciate the scale of Iran's retaliation. Iran was obliged to respond, or the regime would have been seen to look weak. This attack on the Al Udeid base in Qatar, is it a one-off, or is there more to come? If it is the former, then the US might determine that, given that there were no casualties, no requirement to respond. But it's then thrown back to President Trump. He's utilized his superior military might. There's no doubt about that. But he now needs to show the statecraft to say, where does this all go? Defeating the regime, setting them back militarily is the easy part. It's the strategic thinking, it's the stability, the plan that follows. That's the tougher challenge that lies ahead. And that's what we now need to see, is the diplomatic initiatives that America now takes over to say, where does this move forward? Iran's capabilities have been hugely diminished. But the reason why America has hesitated for so long in attacking Iran in the first place is because what do you do if the regime falls? And it is now in a precarious situation. If it did fall, civil war could easily follow. And given the size of the military that's there, you could easily see a dictator then taking over. So you're also then left with a situation that we haven't had any real damage assessment on exactly what happened to those research facilities to create a nuclear weapon. I have to say that if I was Iran, I would have squirreled away that 400 kilograms of enriched uranium long ago, either into another country and the scientists with it, or into another secret location. So there's still a lot of homework to do to understand whether the threat still remains from a nuclear capability, and then where is the off-ramp if this is the case, that both sides are now going to temper back their attacks on each other.
Can I ask you a question I just asked Chris Philp a short while ago, and that is, has the United Kingdom been completely made almost a bit part of this? It's been cut out of communiques. We heard a short while ago the Armed Forces Minister in Parliament could not even say what the UK knew before Iran's strike, before Israel's strike, before Donald Trump's strike. Diego Garcia, Chagos wasn't used. Britain had been cut out of the loop. Has Britain's inability to take a stance in this situation made us redundant, a spare part on the world stage?
No, I think you're reading a bit too much into it. I understand why you say these things, but we remain extremely close with the United States. I attended the Armed Warfare Conference with Rusi last week, and to see our senior military generals engage with each other, that relationship is second to none. It's the closest in the world. I understand Britain was informed prior to these attacks, but America had decided, I think reluctantly as well, for the reasons why I've articulated. They were actually speaking to Iran through negotiations and were drawn into this because Israel decided to interpret the IAEA report to say a nuclear weapon was on its way. That wasn't America's interpretation. So America has gone from being bystander to being lead combatant here. The role of Britain, I wouldn't dismiss it. There's some back channel work. We have a convening power as well, but we're no different from other nations such as France and so forth, that America, once they made that decision operationally to then attack Iran, then it was left over to those in uniform to then conduct this and execute this forensic operation, which went down very, very impressively indeed.
Thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure to have your company. That's the former Defence Secretary Tobias Ellwood. Thank you. Now, joining the studio now to continue this conversation by GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, who was, as the former political editor of The Mirror, spent a lot of time with Tony Blair's cabinets during the Iraq War. Now, I want to, Nigel, draw your attention to Donald Trump. Of course, he's taken to Truth social media and he's just said this: the sites that we hit in Iran were totally destroyed and everyone knows it. Only the fake news would say anything different in order to try and demean as much as possible. And even they say they were pretty well destroyed. Working especially hard on this falsehood is Alison Cooper of Fake News CNN, Dumb Brian L. Roberts, the chairman of Comcast, Johnny Carl of ABC Fake News, and always the losers of, again, Comcast, NBC Fake News. It never ends with the sleazebags in the media. And that's why their ratings are at an all-time low, 0 credibility. Nigel Nelson, as you'd imagine, Donald Trump not particularly happy, read between the lines there, because CNN have been claiming that Donald Trump's nuclear strikes weren't effective. Is very, very quick to blast back at them.
Isn't he just? We don't know how effective they were. I mean, Donald Trump claims that they were an absolute success. There is no way of knowing. The satellite pictures aren't coming back to show whether these sites have been destroyed. I think Tobias